In 66 days, Barack and Michelle Obama and their two daughters, 10-year-old Malia and 7-year-old Sasha, will become the youngest first family to move into the White House since the Kennedys nearly 50 years ago. While the Obama transition team has been working closely with the Bush administration to ensure an orderly transfer of power, the Obama family has been working hard on a transition of their own that began with an emotional election night victory in Chicago. When was the first moment that it began to sink in that you were President of the United States? Do you remember?
Well, I'm not sure it's sunk in yet.
Yeah, I guess I'm sort of like him. I'm not sure if it has really sunk in, but I remember we were watching the returns, and on one of the stations, Barack's picture came up, and it said, President-elect Barack Obama. And I looked at him and I said, you are the 44th President of the United States of America. Wow, what a country we live in.
How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then she said, are you going to take the girls to school in the morning?
I did not. I didn't say that.
It wasn't at that moment.
You made the address in Grant Park,
Yeah.
and you brought the kids out.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, you whispered something. Can you remember that?
I said, wow, look at this.
How about that?
I told him, good job, well done. To walk out there and see hundreds of thousands of hardworking folks, because so many people put their energy and their hopes into this campaign, to see the outcome and the emotion. It was a very emotional evening, because I think people were ready to take hold of this country and help move it in a different direction, and you felt that.
The emotion of that night was fueled in part by the fact that you were the first African-American ever elected. Did you feel that?
There's no doubt that there was a sense of emotion that I could see in people's faces and in my mother-in-law's face. You know, I mean, you think about Michelle's mom, you know, who grew up on the west and south sides of Chicago, who worked so hard to help Michelle get to where she is, her brother to be successful. She was sitting next to me, actually, as we were watching returns, and she's like my grandmother was, sort of a no-fuss type of person. And suddenly she just kind of reached out and she started holding my hand, you know, and kind of squeezing it. And you had this sense of, well, what's she thinking? For a black woman who grew up in the 50s in a segregated Chicago, to watch her daughter become First Lady of the United States. You know, I think there was that sense across the country, and not unique to African Americans. I think
That's
that
right.
I think people felt that it was a sign of the enormous progress that we've made and the core decency and generosity of the American people. Which isn't to say that, you know, there were a number of reasons that somebody might not have voted for me. But what was absolutely clear is that whether people voted for me or against me, that they were making the judgment based on, is this guy going to, you know, lead us well? Is this guy going to be a good president? And that was my assumption walking in, and that's how it turned out. And that felt good.
What was your conversation like the next morning at the breakfast table with the kids?
Everyone was tired.
Because they had been up until
They had
midnight.
been up, but we got up and went to school. We went to school late. Barack, you slept in. You know, so I think we were just back into the routine. I mean, that's been our hopes, is just to keep the girls moving. It's like, okay, Daddy's president-elect. Okay, we can get to school by 10. And we got to the school, and the folks at the school were excited. Some people were cheering as I walked the kids through the class, and I remember Malia saying, "That's embarrassing." But, you know, it was a pretty normal day for us.
And there have not been many of those. The past 2 years were spent on the campaign trail. And before that, Senator Obama split his time between their home in Chicago, where Michelle and the girls lived, and this very modest apartment in Washington, which nearly burned down. So you've given up the apartment in Washington that you stayed in?
I used to get teased, not just by Michelle, but by my own staff. They'd say, you know, you're the only senator who has a worse department than your 25-year-old staff people. Eventually, I think Secret Service kind of looked at me like, once the building caught fire and the ceiling caved in, I said.
But he moved back in anyway.
For a while.
After the fire.
Shortly.
Did you ever stay there?
I visited, but I didn't sleep there.
She insisted on a hotel room.
I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw it long enough to know that I wasn't going to stay there.
Yeah.
Was this one-bedroom studio?
Yeah, it was sort of a one-bedroom. It had kind of the vintage college dorm.
Community
pizza,
organizer. Right.
Yeah.
Community
empty beer
organizer.
bottle feel to it.
It reminded
Yeah.
me of a little better version of the apartment you were in when we first started dating.
Yes. Yeah, which was right near
was a dump, too.
right near Harold's Chicken Shack.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's when I had the car with the
hole
in it.
And you could see the sidewalk because the rust had
Sort
gone
of
through.
air conditioning.
So that was my side. I would look and see the ground going past. And I still married him.
That's how I knew she loved me. It wasn't for my money.
They got their first look at their new home last Monday when the president and Laura Bush invited the Obamas to the White House, which has 130 more rooms than that old Washington apartment. What was it like going through there?
Oh, first of all, Laura Bush was just so gracious. She is a really sweet person and couldn't have been more excited and enthusiastic about the tour, so that was wonderful. And her entire team, their team has been working closely just to make us feel welcome. But the White House it's beautiful. It is awe-inspiring. It is, what I felt walking through there was that it is a great gift and an honor to be able to live here, and we want to make sure that we're upholding what that house stands for. But I couldn't help but envisioning the girls running into their rooms and running down the hall and with a dog, and you start picturing your life there. And our hopes is that the White House will feel open and fun and full of life and energy.
Sleepovers.
And sleepovers.
I know that from talking to you, and you've said that this has put a lot of, that Brock's involvement in politics has put strains on your marriage from time to time. He's about to take over the most pressure-packed job in the world, but he's also going to be home, right?
Oh, yeah. He's got a big office at home now, or he will have home office.
Yeah.
This entire year and a half has brought us closer together as a family, and we managed to stay close and become even closer with Barack gone most of an entire 2-year period. And now we get to be together under the one roof, having dinners together, and I envision the kids coming home from school and being able to run across the way to the Oval Office and see their dad before they start their homework, and having breakfast, and he'll be there to tuck them in at night. And again, there'll be moments of deep seriousness and times of great focus, but we'll be together doing it, and that gives me reason to be very excited.
Does your dad do this every weekend?
He used to.
But that's not the only thing that's about to change for the Obamas. When we first met them 2 years ago in Chicago, everything was much simpler.
Yeah, my grandfather, he prided himself on being the king of sandwich making.
I can remember the first time we went to your house. We were greeted at the door by the girls.
Yeah.
They were a little smaller then, a couple of years younger. But that part certainly has to have changed. I mean, you can't get in the car and drive wherever you want all over Chicago, right?
Yeah, I remember the first time we interviewed, we just drove down right near Mom's house.
That's right, you did.
Got out of the car, walked in front of
walked around
your mother's house.
Yeah, that's a little harder to do now.
You told me that when you went off to Washington and made the decision to live there, when you came back to Chicago, you had certain chores that you had to perform. You had to wash the dishes and make your bed. Are you free now on that front?
Well,
certainly there's going to be somebody else to wash the dishes and make your bed.
Yes.
if you want
to.
Sometimes it's soothing to wash the dishes.
Since when was it ever soothing for you to wash dishes?
You know, when I had to do it, I'd make it into a soothing thing.
The thing you have to remember, Steve, is that, the interesting part about this year is that it has slowly transitioned us into this. So today doesn't feel as normal as it did yesterday. If we had compared it to the January before he announced, it would seem truly odd. But we have gradually, had more and more changes. And I think for us, that's helped us get adjusted to it. So today isn't a shock.
One of the great joys of this campaign is seeing how the girls have adjusted to this thing. They have stayed their normal, cheerful, happy, courteous, curious selves. And that was one of my biggest worries, and remains one of my biggest worries. When we think about, I know Michelle and I have talked about this a lot, how do we just maintain that precious normalcy in our two girls?
Yeah.
And, because right now they're not self-conscious, they don't have an attitude, and I think one of our highest priorities over the next 4 years is retaining that. If at the end of 4 years, just from a personal standpoint, we can say they are who they are. They remain the great joys that they are. And this hasn't, created a whole bunch of problems for them, then I think we're going to feel pretty good.
How has your life changed in the last 10 days?
It's calmed down a bit. I mean, we're back into more of a routine.
There's still some things we're not adjusted to.
Like what?
Like
What do you want? What are
Me
you
not being
adjusted
able to take a walk.
Oh, well,
No, those are things that.
I don't walk as much as he does, so I guess I don't miss it.
Yeah,
You want to go for a walk?
I do. I'd love to take you for a walk, although it's cold today. But
Yeah, I wouldn't go with you.
I know. But that's something that I don't think I'll ever get used to. The loss of anonymity, and this is not a complaint. This is part of what you sign up for. But being able to just wander around the neighborhood. I can't go to my old barber shop now. I've got to have my barber come to some undisclosed location to cut my hair. The small routines of life that keep you connected, I think. Some of those are being lost. One of the challenges I think that we're going to be wrestling with is how to stay pretty normal, because we said this before the campaign, and I believe this. I actually think that we are as close to what normal folks go through and what their lives are like as just about anybody who's been elected president recently. Hanging on to that is something that's important. Michelle helps on that because she's just a sensible person.
I know you've said that your first priority is to be mom in chief.
Yes.
You're a Harvard Law School grad yourself, and a Princeton grad. You are a high-powered executive. How long do you give her knocking around that big house before she starts to want to put an imprint on the job of being First Lady?
I think Michelle is going to design her own role. I think she's going to set her own path. But here's one thing I know about Michelle. She's serious when she talks about being a mom. That's why our girls are so wonderful. I'd love to take credit for it, but this is the one who deserves most of the credit.
Well, the thing we've learned, as we've watched this campaign is that women are capable of doing more than one thing well at the same time. And I've, had to juggle being mom in chief and having a career for a long time. The primary focus for the first year will be making sure that the kids make it through the transition. But there are many issues that I care deeply about. I care about military families and the work-family balance issue. I care about education. Both Barack and I believe that we can have an impact in the D.C. area, in terms of making sure we're contributing to the community that we immediately live in. That's always been something that we've tried to do, whether it's in our own neighborhoods or in the schools that we've attended. So there's plenty to do.
Did you seriously consider sending the girls to public school?
We're still in the process of figuring out that transition, and what we have asked people to understand is that the decision that we make will be based on the best interest of the girls. We haven't made that decision yet. We want that to be a personal process, so and people have been really good about respecting that.
Who else will be moving into the White House with them? That part of the story in a moment.